Hi folks, it's me Michaela and welcome back to my channel. It is the end of the year and I really do love end of the year because I get to do all of my reviews and my recaps and plan for the new year, and we know how much I love to plan, we know how much I love a spreadsheet, you know how much I love to take a note on my iPad. Boy, have I done that. So today I thought I would go through and review my 2024 reading goals I made, see how successful I was with those, and then also talk to you about my reading goals for 2025. Like, that's what we're gonna do. So let's do it. Starting with like my 2024 reading goals, let's do this chronologically. I did have my first reading goal for 2024 to be to read more new releases, and I included both 2023 and 2024 releases as a new release just because I have been reading so much backlist and I really wanted to start reading some more recent releases. And I have to say, I feel like I did accomplish this goal. I did read I read This Summer Will Be Different was a new release, Daydream was a new release, Funny Story was a new release, Collide was a new release, Fall With Me was a new release, Mislaid in Parts Half Known by Seanan McGuire was a new release. Is that it? Did I read more new releases? Did Murder in the Family come out this year or last year? Well, even if it came out last year, that's like a new release. Oh, I read Just Another Missing Person by Gillian McAllister, which is a new release from last year. So, I feel like I did accomplish this goal. I read quite a few books that either came out in 2023 or 2024. So, I would say this was a success. I then had a goal of reading more nonfiction, and I would say I did a decent job achieving this goal as well. I read 3 memoirs this year. I read Crying in Mart by Zauner. I read Pageboy by Elliot and I also read Ducks by Kate Beaton, which is a graphic novel memoir. Although 3 isn't a huge number and they're all memoirs and not other forms of nonfiction, I think considering I went into this basically having never read nonfiction, that having 3 nonfictions under my belt in the 1 year is pretty good. I would say success, no. 2 out of 2. My third goal was to enter my romance era, and I blew this goal out of the water. This goal is now on the moon with how high I achieved that, because my romance shelf, I'm looking at my romance shelf right now, and it is both overflowing and it has taken over part of my mystery thriller shelf. I might have went a little too much with the romance era. There was a point midway through this year where I feel like I was reading almost only romance, and I had to claw my way back because I was like, girl, you're gonna read too much of this, you're gonna burn out, and then you're never gonna want to read a romance again, so you better slow down and read at least one other genre of book, please, dear God. Which I did, but I will say I entered my romance reading era. I feel like there's still so much of the romance genre for me to explore, but I feel like I have a slight idea of what I like, which can also vary. I don't always want the same kind of romance, but it's nice to know that I can like romance and I do like romance, and there is romance out there that I want to read, because for a while I kind of just was never interested in romance at all. But I have found that romance books, especially the more rom-com-y style, although I don't always want a rom-com-y style, sometimes the more serious literary side of romance is nice, but when I'm looking for a nice palate cleanser, quick read kind of book, I have found romance to be the best option for me in that area. Especially I think before, what I used to use as a quick read in between larger or heavier books as a palate cleanser used to be YA, mostly YA fantasy, but some YA. And I have really been leaning away from YA, and I feel romance has been able to fill that hole in my reading for me, which has been very lovely and I do enjoy. So I've been doing great with my 2024 reading goal so far, which is amazing considering I never really checked in on what I made these goals. I kind of wrote them down and then had them in the back of my mind the whole year, but I didn't do too much to actively try to achieve them, which is why did I make the goal? But I feel like it was in my subconscious that this was my goal, and it did like impact my reading choices. The fourth goal was to keep my currently reading series under 15, and this I did not do. If you saw my series spreadsheet review for 2024, you would like already know this, but my currently reading is not currently 15 series, and that is mostly because I accidentally started a few series this year, or I had like The House in the Cerulean Sea suddenly became a series, so like that added a series on my currently reading series that I didn't know about. And then I feel like there was a couple books where I was like, oh fun, this is a series and I didn't know that, and then I had to write it as a series on my currently reading series, so like that's why it's not under 15. So like I in fact failed with that. I did have like a subcategories of this that I wanted to get up to date in Veronica Speedwell. I could not have failed at this more, because I only read one more book in Veronica Speedwell the entirety of 2024, and that was the first book I read this year. I really was like, I'm getting up to date in Veronica Speedwell, read it as my first book of the year, gave it 5 stars, loved it, best book in the series, and then just like never picked up the series again. Like, what is wrong with me? Why did I do that? So like, my bad to myself for thinking I was going to do that, because I did not. But my other subcategory was to finish the Inheritance Games, which I did do. I did read The Brothers Hawthorne this year, and that did make me finish the Inheritance Games as a series, because The Grandest Game, which is kind of the next Inheritance Games books, isn't actually an Inheritance Games book. It is a new series that's called The Grandest Game, and it's like a spin-off series of the Inheritance Games. So because I read The Brothers Hawthorne, which I did for a reading vlog, if you want to check it out, I have finished the Inheritance Games series as a whole. So like, I did achieve that goal. So I would say overall, the keeping my currently reading series in check goal was not really accomplished. Okay. Would it have been nice to get 100% on my own personal test that I made for myself? Like, sure, but I guess that wasn't meant to be. So my final reading goal for 2024 was to read 60 books. And I feel the year's not over yet. There's still like a quite a bit of time, but I think I'm on 54 or 55 right now, so it's going to be close. It's going to be close. I am currently reading 2 books though that I'm expecting to finish quickly, and then I have plans of reading a couple more like quick reads, so I'm hoping, you know, that I will make that goal, because if I don't even read 60 books this year after reading 71 or 72 books last year, I'll be like a little sad, especially if it's like I'm off by like 1 book. It almost would be better if I like finished the year and I was like behind by 10 books, you know? It's like, if I'm only off by like 1 or 2, like I will be so sad. I think like part of this is obviously this year I was full-time employed the entirety of the year, so that really kind of, you know, eats into the reading time I had this year compared to last year. And then also I did read a fair number of like very large books in the year 2024, and that definitely affects things. So I'm hoping that I read 60 books, and I think it is quite plausible that I read 60 books, but like, ooh, it's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. Now, with my 2024 reading goals reviewed and recapped, let's jump into the reading goals I'm making for myself in 2025. Starting like right off the bat with my Goodreads goal. You know, here's one other thing. I have been thinking about getting Fable, you know, like the book app Fable, just because, I don't know, like I've been getting ads for it everywhere because, you know, the internet gods know me, and they're like, oh, you like a book? Here's a book tracking app, even though you already have 2. Because I use Goodreads and I use Storygraph. However, I don't really like Storygraph other than for the stats. So I go into Storygraph just to put in the books I read. Like, I just put like, here's the date I started, here's the date I finished the book is entered, and I'll like put a rating on it and then use the stats it makes for me. And in Goodreads, I like how I can shelve things. So like, Goodreads is my main thing, but also Goodreads is not great. Like, we all are just accepting Goodreads and we know it. So is Fable better? Should I get Fable? Do I enter 2025 and have 3 book tracking apps? Because maybe if I really like Fable, I can like stop using one of the other 2 or something. I don't know. This is the question I have. But back to the point I was making, I found that having like the 60 book reading goal this year, I know I just said like, oh, the year's not over yet, I don't know if I achieved it, but having 60 books as a reading goal, I felt like it was like a very good goal to have, because like I said, it's like going to be really close, so it's just challenging enough. I don't want it to be something where it's like, oh, I want to read 12 books and I know I'm going to read at least 50. Like, I want it to be something that's actually going to give me a little motivation to read when perhaps I'm feeling not the motivation to read, you know, to be like, oh, but I wanted to read 60 books this year. So I'm going to set it as 60 books again, because I feel like that is a good number for me. We will see if it ends up being so. My second goal is, again, this is a repeat, but it's to read more nonfiction. But in particular, I want to try reading nonfiction that isn't memoir, just because I feel like, you know, this year I read a few memoirs as nonfiction. I think that was a really great like stepping stone to get into nonfiction. And now I would like to read some other nonfiction that is more educational versus just like memoir. So I would like to read some other memoirs as well, but I think I would like to take the nonfiction goal I had in 2024 and just expand on it even more, because, you know, there's so many books out there. And I think I want to, like, you know, I always talk about how I want to read more broadly, and I think reading more nonfiction is going to get me to that goal. So that's why that's a goal again. Fun. My third reading goal is to read new to me genres. I think I have like a fair number of genres that I do read. I read a lot of like general fiction, fantasy, romance, and then I also read some mysteries, mostly cozy mysteries. I also read some classics, but I think I would like to try and read some new to me genres, maybe try out horror, maybe read some more sci-fi. In terms of like sci-fi, I really have only read Dune, so I don't really consider myself have really read any sci-fi, because I also read that like 2 years ago now or something, maybe even 3 years ago now. But I think I would like to try out some more like contemporary sci-fi, versus like at this point I feel like Dune is considered like a classic in the genre. But yeah, I think like trying out, maybe I'll try out a horror book, even though like I don't think I would like horror, but like I don't know if I haven't read one. Like if you have any recommendations of like soft horror, like I don't want anything that's too horror and then be scared away from it. But I think like sci-fi, horror, and then also like general fiction historical, because I've read some like historical romance, but I think just like general historical books I have not read a lot of. So I think like those three genres are ones that I would like to keep on my radar and maybe try out in 2025, and like, you know, just continue to expand my reading theme of my life. Now for goal number 4, I realized with my currently reading series that trying to keep it under 15 is just not going to work. Okay, like I don't want to have like a number. So this year instead, my goal is to have a net negative on currently reading series. So as long as I have finished reading more series than I start, I will be happy. And like, is that also going to be possible? Maybe not, but like I'm gonna try. And like, when I say like finish, I mean also like either finishing a completed series or being up to date in a currently reading series. Maybe it ends up being like, you know, like as long as it's now that I'm thinking about this like doesn't really make that much sense, because this is still basically like me going off of a number. I made this goal late at night and it made sense when I wrote it down, but now I'm thinking maybe it doesn't. Like maybe I will change it to kind of be more like I've read more books in series I'm already currently reading than series I start, or maybe just like keep it under 20. In general, I want to finish more series. I have a few series that are like I started them very long ago and there's like a lot of books left to read, and I just need to decide like, am I going to read those books? Because if so, I should get on with reading them, or am I just going to DNF the series? Like I kind of need to make that decision. So you know what, I'm going to stick with the net negative. I would like to finish more series than I start in 2025, and we'll just see where that leads me. Indeed, we will. Okay, and then my fifth and final goal for 2025 is to read all of the books on my yearly lists. This is my 23 books in 2023, 24 books in 2024, and 25 books in 2025. I keep making these TBR lists. I haven't even finished reading my 23 books in 2023. I have 2 books left on that list. 2024 list, I don't even know how many I have left because I have not filmed my review of that yet. I've been like ignorance is bliss with that right now. And then of course I made a list of 25 books in 2025. And so I would like to read all of those books that are left on those lists in 2025. However, I am also fully aware that that is kind of asking a lot for myself, because I think then at that point I'm asking for almost 50% of my reading to be books on these lists. So I think if I don't finish them all, I would at least like to really focus on reading all of those books, because the weight on my shoulders of the 23 books in 2023 list just continues to weigh me further and further down. And now I have to add the 24 books in 2024, the ones on that list that I haven't read yet. Like I'm gonna have to add those onto the burden, and I don't know, like I'm not very strong, so I don't know if I can handle that. I'm being like way too dramatic about this, but basically I really want to focus on reading those books because I wrote them down that I wanted to read them, and then I didn't read them, and now I'm like, girl, read those books. So in 2025, my goal is to read those books. And those are the 5 reading goals I made for myself in 2025. Do let me know down below, what reading goals have you made for yourself for the new year? Do you make reading goals for yourself at all? If not, tell me why you don't like making them. Do you use Goodreads? Do you use Fable? Do you use Storygraph? What are your thoughts and opinions? Let me know, because at this rate, I'm just going to keep adding more book tracking apps to my life and never stop using them, and like I'm gonna just have like half my phone be book tracking apps. But whatever. If you happen to like this video, make sure to give it a like, give it a little thumbs up. If you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I'd be happy to have you. And with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.